questions.
Oral questions. Questions orales. Honorable Leader of the Opposition to be next Prime Minister Canada, Pierre Poilievre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For 9 years, this Bloc-backed Liberal government has managed to triple the cost of housing in Montreal. There's been the latest report by Point 2 Homes. They say it takes 14 years for a young Montrealer to save up enough to buy a house with a small down payment. When will the government trigger an election so that Canadians can elect a government which will build housing, cut red tape, and allow home building? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, thank you. What the Conservative leader does not seem to understand is that slogans don't build homes. Slogans don't meet Canadians' needs. What does help is hard work, real solutions. Working with municipalities instead of insulting the Mayor of Montreal. Working with municipalities, with provinces, with not-for-profits. We need to work with all of these partners to build housing units and to meet these challenges. We're here to do some serious work. He's here to shout slogans. He doesn't have a single solution to offer us.
Come on.
And Canadians deserve better, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Solutions. I had solutions when I was Minister of Housing. When I was Minister, we built 200,000 units in Montreal when rent was a third of what it is today. This Bloc-backed Liberal government's inflationary spending has not helped. They've broken the immigration system. They have ballooned big bureaucracy which block building and construction. With all of that, the Prime Minister has succeeded in tripling housing costs, rent costs in Montreal. Can he trigger an election so that Canadians can elect a government that will cut red tape and build homes and cut taxes too? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition does not want to cut taxes because, in fact, he voted against our bill to cut GST for purpose-built rentals for lower-priced units. We're here to build housing units. If any housing was built during his time as a housing minister, it was despite his efforts, or lack thereof, because he built a grand total of 6 affordable units when he was housing minister under Mr. Harper. We're here to deliver affordable housing, to deliver a good life for Canadians, and to build a better future for all.
All right, come on,
The
Pierre.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Well, the taxes for capital gains were increased. That's bloc-backed. If you consider removing the GST for home building, that was eaten up by municipalities increasing taxes with the support of this government.
Social services, because the Prime Minister's carbon tax is forcing new and unjustifiable costs on New Brunswick schools and hospitals that Canadians cannot afford. Will the Prime Minister call a carbon tax election so we can save our schools and hospitals on this tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition started by talking about his opposition to new taxes on capital gains because, once again, the Conservatives are here to defend the ultra-wealthy and cut services for everyone else.
Talked again about his opposition to our bringing in an increase on capital gains because we know that asking the wealthy to do a little more so we can deliver more homes for young Canadians to build that future is what we need to do. But the Conservatives continue to be there with cuts for taxes for the wealthiest, cuts of services for everyone else.
More money in Canadians' pockets. Let them decide what they want to do with the money.
The Prime Minister is hiking taxes on home builders, on doctors, on job creators, and on farmers. And he's also raising taxes on hospitals and schools. The New Brunswick Premier is taking this Prime Minister to court because of the unconstitutional quadrupling carbon tax and the costs it will impose on snowplows, ambulances, heating hospitals and schools, meaning the loss of countless police officers, nurses, doctors, and teachers. Instead of defeating the carbon tax in court, why can't we have a carbon tax election so Canadians can axe the tax?
There you go.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Call the election.
Mr. Speaker, for the past number of years, multiple Conservative premiers have gone after the price on pollution in courts, and they lost at the Supreme Court. The Canadians have decided that price on pollution is the right thing. We've won multiple elections on that because Canadians know that the only way to build a strong economy is to fight climate change at the same time. The Leader of the Opposition doesn't get that, doesn't accept that, doesn't understand that abandoning the fight against climate change would hurt Canadians, would hurt our institutions, would hurt people and economic growth right across the country.
No, Canadians did not vote for a carbon tax.
Mr. Speaker, and he concealed from both the courts and from Canadians his plan to quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre. Now, Premier Scott Moe of Saskatchewan says that this will hit schools with $204 million in carbon taxes and hospitals with $175 million in carbon taxes, meaning we will lose doctors, teachers, and other necessary workers serving Canadians. Instead of forcing premiers to fight to axe the tax in court, why can't we have a carbon tax election so Canadians can axe the tax?
There you go. W's for Pierre, huh? Let's keep the momentum.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader is proposing that we abandon all the fight against climate change. He wants to take away the Canada carbon rebate that puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians, the middle class and people working hard to join it, even as we both fight climate change, reduce emissions in this country, and create growth and opportunities in cleaner jobs and cleaner careers. These are the issues that Canadians are preoccupied with. How are they going to be able to afford jobs into the future when this leader wants to take away the fight against climate change?
How much taxes until there's no more forest fires?
Mr. Speaker, we have heard some shocking and unacceptable words in this House yesterday.
Oh.
The Minister of Labour and Seniors basically said that associations representing all Quebec retirees are either naive or accomplices of the Bloc Québécois who are separatists, independentists, and working with the Conservatives to bring down the government. Even Jean Chrétien wouldn't have said that. Does the Prime Minister condone those remarks, or will he call his minister to order?
Why didn't you vote for the non-confidence, dummy?
Mr. Speaker, our government has always been there for seniors. We invest, we support them. Unlike the Bloc Québécois, we're not here to engage in petty partisan games. They make threats. They try to pick fights. The Liberals, though, we are here to work constructively with anyone in this House who's willing to do so in order to deliver for seniors, in order to invest in those who need support, and to create a better future for all in a united Canada. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The House of Commons, at different times, voted in favour of a bill which would increase the purchasing power of seniors aged 65 to 74. The Labour Minister and of Seniors says that it's a separatist plot with the Conservatives to destroy the Liberals. That's nonsense. Enough nonsense. Will he call his minister to order?
Call an election. Call a vote of non-confidence, dummy. Come on.
Right, Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, let's all remember that when our government chose to bring the retirement age back down to 65 from Mr. Harper's 67 years, the Bloc Québécois voted against it. They voted against seniors. When we decided to increase the GIS for the most vulnerable seniors, how did the Bloc Québécois vote? Against seniors. When we chose to invest in dental care, which has now helped over 800,000 Canadians, many of whom are Quebecers, how did the Bloc Québécois vote? Against seniors.
Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
New Democrats believe in lower rents, not higher. When the Conservatives were in power, they let big, greedy corporations buy up affordable homes and convert them into luxury cash cows. They allowed that to happen over 800,000 times. I will ban it. But the Prime Minister allowed it to happen over 370,000 times. Every single time that happens, that means a family gets evicted. That means rents go up. Why?
Hear, hear.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past number of years, we have worked hand in hand with municipalities and provinces, non-profit organizations, not only to build more affordable homes, but to ensure that homes that were built as affordable apartments or homes get to stay affordable long into the future. We've done that with funds put forward to purchase by nonprofit organizations deeper affordable homes, also to move forward on public lands that will be converted to affordable homes and kept affordable for decades and even a century to come. These are the kinds of things that we're going to continue to do and focus on in this House.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Conservative leaders, chief advisors, also the chief lobbyists for corporate landlords. But what's the Prime Minister's excuse? For decades, Liberals and Conservatives have failed to ensure Indigenous communities have safe and affordable places to call home. Now, over 300,000 Indigenous people live in unsuitable housing. For the Prime Minister, it's delay, delay, delay. When will the Prime Minister realize that he is failing Indigenous people?
I mean, that's a good point. Trudeau is failing Indigenous people.
Investments in Indigenous communities since 2015, including $32 billion in investments expected in 2024-25 alone. We're moving forward on investing in and with Indigenous communities to build more homes, to create more economic opportunities, to create the kinds of partnerships that I got to see just a couple of days ago in Inuvik, where the Inuvialuit are moving forward on ambitious plans for the future. This is reconciliation in action, not just pretty words, but actions that are actually delivering for Canadians. There's lots more to do, but we're going to keep delivering for Indigenous.
Dude, there's communities in Canada that have brown water.
The NDP Liberal government is not worth the cost of food. The food professor estimates that between 2022 and 2025, the cost of food will be up 34%. That's a time that coincides exactly with the NDP Liberal coalition. Coincidentally, the NDP leader's chief spokesman and brother, his company is a lobbyist for Metro. But the food professor blames the increase on carbon taxes on farmers and truckers who bring us our food. Before Canadians go hungry, why won't the Prime Minister allow a carbon tax election so Canadians can axe the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, farmers across this country are feeling the impacts of the extreme weather events that come from climate change, whether it's droughts or wildfires or floods. We are seeing the costs of climate change every single day. And we put forward a price on pollution that not only brings down emissions and creates more solutions and economic growth, it also puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians right across the country. It's the parliamentary budget officer who says that.
No.
Continue to fight.
No, they said the opposite, and you gagged them.
To abandon the fight against climate change.
That's not what PBO said.
The opposition.
The Prime Minister loves to blame the rest of the world for the rampant food price inflation here at home. But the food professor proves that narrative false. He has calculated that food prices have risen 36% faster in Canada than in the United States of America. What does Canada have that the Americans don't have? 2 words: carbon tax.
Wow.
Instead of forcing Canadians to line up at food banks, why won't he let them line up to vote in a carbon tax election?
There you go. W's for Pierre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I didn't dare say anything after the last question because I sort of couldn't believe my ears. But here we have the Leader of the Opposition actually quoting some sort of expert, which is a brand new thing for this House of Commons. To rely on facts and data is an excellent thing to hear. Now, perhaps the Leader of the Opposition will listen to the hundreds of economists and scientists who have pointed out that putting a price on pollution, particularly one that puts more money back in the pockets of the middle class and those working hard to join it, is the best way to both fight climate change and grow the economy. But the leader opposite, he just wants to play politics.
look at that. Fake enthusiasm. Come on.
Colleagues, I ask all members, including the member from Peterborough, Halliburton Brock, to only take the microphone, take the floor when he's recognized by the Speaker. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister! Yeah! Yeah, baby!
And I've got some more expert information for the Prime Minister from the food professor Sylvain Charlebois, who finds that 13% of Americans live in food insecurity, while here in Canada it's 23%. In other words, Canadians are twice as likely to live in food security after food price of inflation has been 1/3 higher under this Prime Minister's carbon tax regime. Again, instead of blaming others or forcing Canadians to go hungry, why not a carbon tax election so that Canadians can axe the tax and afford their food?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, while the Leader of the Opposition is playing politics, we're focused on delivering solutions.
This is politics,
a
you
national
dummy.
food program that's going to help 400,000 kids have fuller bellies at schools across the country and save Canadian families $800 a year on grocery bills. And if the Leader of the Opposition actually cared about food security in this country, you might imagine he'd have voted for that. Instead, not only did he vote against it, he pretends it doesn't exist. He pretends it hasn't happened. He's gaslighting Canadians on the things we're doing to fight affordability challenges. Instead, he's just offering political games.
It's not gaslighting. He's pointing out the failures. You're gaslighting.
The opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's a food program without food. It hasn't served a single ham sandwich, not a single bowl of Kraft dinner, not even a piece of broccoli has been forced upon an unwilling kid. Mr. Speaker, this is meant to feed bureaucracy, not feed kids. Meanwhile, there's a 42% increase in the food bank use in Mississauga, and 2 million Canadians are lined up at food banks. 1/4 of children are going hungry after 9 years of his carbon taxes. Why can't we have a carbon tax election?
Well said, Honourable Prime Minister. Pierre Poilievre.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if the Leader of the Opposition actually cared about vulnerable Canadians, he'd be offering solutions, not just more politics. He stood against...
Dude, this is politics. What the hell are you talking about?
Colleagues.
Accusing him of doing politics is accusing him of doing his job?
Honourable Prime Minister to start from the top.
Mr. Speaker, this campus conservative turned career politician doesn't actually care about Canadians. What he's actually doing is proposing to take money out of the pockets of 8 of the 10 Canadians who do better with the Canada carbon rebate while we fight climate change. He stood against dental care that is delivering for over 800,000 people across this country, something he still says doesn't exist. He's standing against the school food policy that is helping 400,000
Oh, he's stuttering a lot.
food across the country. He stood against childcare. He has stood against affordability measures.
That was tough. That was tough for him. Here we go, Pierre.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, when you quadruple the tax on the farmers who grow the food and on the truckers who ship the food, you tax all who buy the food. The Canadian Trucking Alliance has calculated that the carbon tax will cost $20,000 for every long-haul truck this year alone. Now he wants to quadruple the tax, which will grind those trucks to a halt, meaning empty shelves in grocery stores, no parts for factories, and no paychecks for our workers. Instead of doing that, why not call a carbon tax election so that Canadians can axe the tax and save our economy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I suspect that, like me, you have noticed that the Leader of the Opposition is particularly full of shameless slogans today. The reality is nothing to offer. He has
That was tricky.
political slogans and easy attacks on politics. No actually moving forward on delivering on programs that are going to help Canadians. No stepping up to put more money in people's pockets. He's offering tax breaks for the wealthiest and cuts for services and programs to everyone else. That's not what Canadians need right now.
Whoa, that was tricky. Tricky dicky.
I'd like to remind the Right Honourable Prime Minister and all members of this House that this is not an avenue where we want to go down. It can easily get out of control, and I would suggest that we don't go that close to the line. The Honourable Order.
Oh, shh. Shh. Everybody shush.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, every time I mention a carbon tax election, he becomes so panicked and erratic that he loses control of himself and starts spitting out incomprehensible insults. When Canadians deserve us focusing on them. The fact that after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, we have 2 million people lined up at food banks, a record-smashing number. After 9 years, 1 in 4 kids are going to school hungry. Before more kids go to school hungry, why can't we have a carbon tax election so that Canadians can axe the tax and afford their food?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Canada Carbon Rebate puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians right across the country. It supports the middle class and people working hard to join it while we successfully fight against climate change, reduce emissions, and grow the economy. But the leader opposite still doesn't understand that you can't have an economic plan if you don't have an environmental plan. His plan is to abandon the fight against climate change, leave Canadians to their own devices, lower taxes for the wealthiest, and leave everyone else to fend for themselves. That's not what Canadians do.
Pierre's got Trudeau on his heels. On his high heels.